go back to the colors, okay? Because in the color, in me seeing black and, seeing that the black didn't have a waveform and it was 0, and then they automatically, white being the opposite of that in our society, it just made me go to think about white, and then the color white came up. And of course, in society in this day and age, is explaining white as the combination of all colors. But that's not what it is. In actuality, white is, the color white is being expressed as the formation of all colors. And I myself know that I could take all colors of the crayon colors and put them together, and that does not fucking give me white. But so in that, and the evidence of that, I know that white is actually a byproduct. So when you have this color spectrums of light in the light gas form, the color form in that way, and as a gas, those lights, those spectrums are being bent, and it is hitting something, and white is illumination. White is a spark, which is a reaction. So, a lot of these people love to produce synthetic stuff, you know what I'm saying? So white is literally a synthetic reaction of the colors bending and hitting. When light is bent and it hits, I'll say a wave. It hits a wave, it hits another light, it hits an object. It could be, it could hit a metal or a gas, whatever's in the air. Whatever's obstruction that it hits when it's being bent. Like, let's say you take a piece of iron and you bend it. Well, you broke something. You broke the bond. So it's like the light is bent, and then there's a spark that comes off of that moment when the light is bent and broken, and that spark that is produced is a reaction. It is a synthesized reaction, which we have considered to be a color. We have expressed a value of color for this because we were able to visibly see it. Okay, so just go with me real quick here. So, because it is visible, yet it doesn't have its own frequency, it doesn't have anything to sustain itself. Like, let's think about this. A spark is literally here and there. It comes and goes. It's in existence, and then you can't see it anymore. It's short-lived reaction. A spark is a short-lived reaction. So this white that we have now accepted as a color, because we've given it a valuable description, because we were able to see it with our eyes. It is on a spectrum. It holds a spectrum, very, very short-lived. It's a very short-lived reaction. So that in itself is telling you about the properties of this spark that is white. White doesn't have enough to exist on its own. Now I'm going to show you where the illusion of the colors, like let's go to paint. This is where the illusion comes in, okay, to make you think that white is actually a real substance or just a real self-reliant form, when it's not. A spark is a short-lived synthetic reaction of a byproduct from light being bent. So it's not a color itself, it's not a light itself. It is a synthetic reactive byproduct. So in our society, they are attempting to represent that spark, that byproduct, by choosing a visible form color called white, to assigning a visible color to this byproduct spark, to make you believe, to convince you that it is a solid form of itself, Well, let's go and see. Let's deal with paint. Let's deal with paint, and let's deal with how white paint is being produced. So you have to, let's take any color. Okay, let's just go with red. Let's take the color red paint. In order for me to get this, what would be considered white, this white paint, what is going to represent the color white, in order for me to get that, I will have to remove all of the substance within the recipe, the base, all of the substance within the base of the color red, anything that is contributed to red becoming a visible red paint, to make the paint actual fluid, a thick viscous fluid that I can use. Okay, so I would remove all of the things that I put into this base to make it a paint until it is a thick, a viscous white, until I get that white substance, that white base for colored paints and things, is what they are attempting to show you as a physical representation of this spark, this white that is created when light is bent, because it really isn't anything other than just a reactive byproduct. It does not have the physical structure to exist on its own. This is the most important part of it. It does not have a physical structure to exist on its own. Now, we're going to go in with why they want to call white people white and what this is. Okay, don't go in all the past jargon of how they try to say they attach the word white to black people, and black people used to be called white and all the other type of shit. This is all confusion, chaotic information released in this duality that they've created to continue chaos, where you have one thing saying something and then something completely contradicting that, where you have to pick a side to say, I believe this, I believe that. Now belief has to come into form instead of actuality, factual, truth. So now, because they were able to say, hey, we can use this viscous paint base, this base product that we've made, and this could actually represent white. And we'll use this and label it with the color white to represent that color spectrum spark that is produced, that synthetic byproduct that is produced when light is bent. So now that they have something to physically represent it, they can convince people that white is a color formation on its own, that is a vibratory standing full structure when it's not. Okay, so now let's go to a very sensitive subject here where we talk about white people. Okay, it is a known fact that white people, the genetic of a white person, okay, so they don't have a history, a single intelligence on their own. They can't even exist on their own in any way whatsoever. I'm just going to work it out and just record it. I'm not even going to try to explain. I'm just going to record how I work through this. So you have a white being, a being that's being referenced as white. This being has no history on earth. This being was created out of a synthetic form of the true natural being of this realm, which is the dark melanated being, the first being to walk this earth, the first being to create everything. This melanated being created this synthetic byproduct, being. This being cannot exist on its own. This being needs to be alloyed, to be mixed with something else in order for it to even have a life expectancy, a life term. But once that being is gone, that being no longer exists, because it never was a true natural element on this earth. It's just a reactive element that was alloyed to a physical natural element to now have a resonance, a form. Okay, so I've been researching and studying on the endocrine system and the hormonal releases that just creates, as simple as our visions and things that we see, things that we think, feel, taste, all of this stuff is literally can be reduced to elemental chemical formations that create certain experiences. Okay? Within our bodies, within these bodies, these forms, physical forms that we exist in. So, just as simple as that, the natural being on the earth is literally producing a reaction, okay, that is producing this synthetic form that is being mixed in with the natural being in order to have a life existence. They're mixed in on all levels, all the way down to their biological form, all the way to societal form. Even in society, they cannot exist without us. So this is the basis to why they pretty much hate us, because they have some of our historical ancient information in their possession that has been removed from us. Okay, removed from the majority of the natural melanated beings that are on this earth realm. Okay, so and knowing and having the information, imagine being a synthetic form, knowing that you were created and that you don't have an existence as far as this other being. You are dependent solely on this other being. Like, imagine knowing that everything in your environment is naturally of this earth except for you. To know that your total existence requires the combination, the mixture of this other being in order to even be in existence. This is why, the white Caucasian gene, the white genetics, if it's isolated, it's literally, that means if it is isolated, if it's reduced to its the most simplified form that it can without being destroyed. That means you can reduce it all the way down to right before it is completely annihilated. That means, because I said it's a byproduct and it needs a part of us to be able to exist. So if you take it all the way down to what it can barely, where it literally have the tiniest bit of our DNA attached to it for its survival existence, you will see that this synthetic gene is completely in opposition to our natural vibratory frequency of existence on this earth. It is psychotic, it is retarded, it is, I'm talking about in its actions, in its action form. These are different terms that can express the sporadic existence that this genetic substance would be showing. The synthetic genetic substance of this gene in its simplified form would resemble in its actions, basically like how it would vibrate, what it would do, all these things would be considered retarded, destructive, chaotic, in a sense of just like it would be a disruptive force, which we know in previous years before the evolution and the resemblance of what the white gene it has been mixed into now in society, like the base white person who can appear to be civilized and there's appear to be civilized form where they resemble some of our characteristics but never could be what we are. And going back to saying in their previous dynastic existence, they were very, very, very much what we would call, the words that they use now will be considered like evil, demonic, or, which is just the behaviors. The behaviors of them would be an opposite vibratory resonance than the behavior of us, of the natural order that we attach to the earth's natural vibration. And this is why you have the white man that loves, that is infatuated with creating all sorts of synthetic forms of life, all the way to the robot, because they know their truth. They have our ancient scientific knowledge and wisdom in their possession. They've been studying it in hopes of trying to understand it, and it's taken them all the way to now to be able to produce things that we were producing just for our own, experiments. They're just not producing these things now. They're just not understanding it at its base level. This is their evolution, and this is why they are so. There's a faction of them. We call them the elite. The malice elite faction, who not all of them, I'm going to say all of them are privileged to the information. Most people, the average person walking the earth in society is completely ignorant. They have no idea of what is truly going on in this physical existence, physical realm. But you have an elite, a malice elite faction who are in possession of our ancient scientific knowledge and wisdom. And so these people are privileged to the fact of knowing like who and what they really are. So that is why they are obsessed with creating all sorts of forms of synthetic life forms, because they identify with the synthetic life form, because they know they are synthetic in themselves. So to create a robot that resembles humanistic behaviors and characteristics would be like them creating themselves, their life forms, and especially if they can create it to appear to be what they would consider to be highly intelligent, more intelligent than its natural maker. Its original natural maker, which that can never fucking be. It's all just an illusion of combined lies and just buried information and hocus pocus bullshit that they've created to convince the natural being in its dormant existence. We're in a dormant, most of the original beings right now who have not reached this level of activation and who has not evolved into the new form. They haven't cracked the egg. They haven't came out of their egg form, because most of us are in a incubation, walking around in an incubated form, because we, like a spore, went into a hibernation. We went into a dormant form in order to reserve ourselves for the new next level of existence that we're about to go into. Now we have eggs popping every day, every moment. We're evolving at higher rates and speeds into this new life form that we were always intended to become. So during our incubation period, this synthetic life form that we created they were given governance over our past hidden knowledge. Like they were the guardians of it, so to speak. So, because they are made of us in our likeness, they have a limited level of intellect. Enough so to be able to, and they're, let's just note on here that their intellectual evolution is very, very slow. Very, very slow. That's why they have to try to measure time. They are so infatuated with time and watches and all of this shit. And why they have to attempt to compact time as well, as it's just this base linear thing in order to slow down, because they're creating this false projection of a very slow passing space, a dense, low vibratory space is what they're projecting, in order for them to somehow evolve enough to be able to understand their environment. So you have a faction of them who was able to use our genetic genes that's within them and our information left. They were able to come to a level of understanding it to produce certain effects within our reality. One being, they started to understand some of our scientific experiments that we were performing, as far as like atomic experiments, as far as like dealing with atoms and dealing with cells, the physical body. They were able to understand how we were creating these physical forms and how we were taking different elements in the environment and we were creating from that through different chemical mixtures and reactions and stuff like that. So they've been able to reproduce some of our experiments, and they were even able to now take their gene, mix it in with our genes in different ways to produce different levels of life forms. They're trying to they were trying to, I think they already know because they have prophesized visions and recordings of what is to come. Okay, so they also know that as well. They've been looking for this to happen, but they've been trying their best to use their time that they had guardianship of our information to extend their life, and to somehow change what is, which is an absolute, an unrealistic goal of theirs, something that could never ever happen and never ever be. So we have all been trapped into this chaos, this chaos that's been happening due to one of our synthetic life forms attempting to project a low vibratory environment so that they can increase their evolutional time span to be able to evolve to enough of a being to be able to understand certain things, to produce certain effects, all sorts of stuff. So, like I said, this is the reason why they are so gung-ho as far as producing all of this synthetic stuff. You have to think why is this being so acclimated to, when we have all these natural resources? Why are they so acclimated to producing all of this all these synthetic reactions, synthetic forms? Because to them, the synthetic is their life. It is God themselves. It's their God. Synthetic is their God because they are synthetic. So they resent us, their makers, their creators, because they live in an environment. It's like waking up in an environment and knowing that everything around you was naturally here, and you don't actually exist unless you are combined, formed, mixed up, and all sorts of shit in order to even be able to experience existence. And then knowing that once your form dies, you have nothing beyond that, because you aren't anything. You're not anything solidified. You're not a singular form structure in itself. You're just a synthetic reaction, a synthetic byproduct. Your make is literally synthesized. You are the robot, and when the robot runs out of juice, once you run out of the electrical juice, you can't even move, you can't do, and you cease to exist. You only exist as long as your source that you receive. You always have to be in receivance of this source in order to even function. So this is why you see that every time they attempted, you attempted to build and to restore yourself in any type of way, you attempted to regenerate yourself, they have completely, in your baby form, completely been able to destroy, and they will continue to destroy. Like let's just take, in history, after they went through a sort of like a slave moment or whatever happened, where we lost our dynasties, we lost our major societies that we had when we went into our dormant status. Our dormant status that we had to go into in order to go into the next level of existence. When we went into our incubation and they became guardians, custodians of our knowledge and ancient wisdom, now when they see us and our attempt to come out of our incubation and our baby form, because just like a baby you have to grow, when they see us coming out of that, they are attempting to trap us and stop us. So any type of form of creation, it's like control. Our environments are majorly controlled. They have to majorly control our environments, because at any moment we could evolve. This is the goal of theirs, is to prevent our evolution, which is absolutely, there's no way in hell, no way in anything that you could prevent a natural being that they don't fully even understand. They've been studying us through digging up our loved ones, our past loved ones, our ancient ancestors, and studying us. That's why you see every time they're pulling something out the ground, it's always a melanated being. They don't dig up their own because they don't have nothing to study. They need to study us, and they have to study us all the time. That's why they created this medical system where every time you walk into the hospitals or the doctor's office, you are giving consent to be a part of their experiments. And so they have to keep up some level of chaos as far as even in your genes, as far as disease, which they tell you when you are going through a metamorphosis within your being, which is natural. They give you the signs and symptoms to look out for, and they convince you that these signs and symptoms that you will be experiencing, even when it's painful, because we don't understand, we don't fully know, we don't have any of our elders. They cut off all the elders that were hanging on in order until we reached a certain level of evolution to be able to go into our next, to be guided to go into our next form. They completely erased us from our elders, who were our guardians, who were at the gate, who were minding the gates, who had the information, so we would come into existence and have this information. Once we come out of our cocoon, so to speak, we would have them to, guide us from there, this new evolved form of ours. But we lost all of that. So they, being the guardians of our ancient knowledge and wisdom, know only some, because of the extensive studying that they've been doing on us for all of these freaking years. Like a lot of different decades, years have went by where they have studied us continuously, and that's why they don't have no type of conscience as far as doing all these different heinous things, even to some of their own, because they understand they're just synthetic byproduct anyways, and because they operate from a synthetic byproduct and level of intelligence, nothing actually really matters to them because they don't really truly exist. So, okay, I could literally go on so many different levels and explain so many different things with you, but I'm gonna try to stay, on subject, on topic here. So we have this synthetic life form who has been able to identify certain symptoms when our genes start to mutate, because we're ever evolving. Okay, that's the natural being that we are on this earth. We're naturally ever evolving. They aren't, though. They can only evolve as much as they can mix in with our genes. Okay, so when they have been able to identify certain evolution symptoms that they have convinced us is some sort of disease or defect, and scare us with that knowledge to say, when you identify these symptoms, come into our office, come into our hospital, get to us immediately. Not telling you that you're going through a natural evolutionary process that you're supposed to go through, but they are saying when you get these, that's all the information they're giving us, is when you get these symptoms, come to us immediately. So we go to them immediately afraid and scared, because we trust our parents who have been captured before us, that don't have the knowledge either, that's been trained and programmed to watch out, identify these symptoms, and rush to their facilities for care and treatment. Well, the care and treatment is them being able to now administer protocols to completely stop your your mutation, to stop your mutation at the door. If they can't stop it, if it's something they want to experiment with you because it's something new that they haven't seen, they'll run all sorts of random protocols and watch it very extensively to record their findings. Okay, this is what's going on a daily basis, every single day. And so they'll just run these protocols, and if you die, if your spirit being exit the physical form, you just exit the physical form, and they don't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? And they know that you will come right back into the physical form body again, because we're in a state of repopulation through physical births that we're having in this moment. That's why it's a major thing for them to continuously create, to keep that physical form. I'll have the plot. As I'm speaking, the plot, their overall diabolical plot and scheme is being revealed to me. Okay, so basically this is their goal. Their goal is to one day completely cease all births, so as to completely cease the reincarnated cycle. Once they feel like they have perfected their own life form to take over this physical earth realm. This is their stupid fucking diabolical it's so ignorant in itself when you think about it. Plan is to create these synthetic life forms, which is their robots. They feel like they've created these robots, and they're getting everybody to believe in these fucking robots, that this artificial intelligence that they're creating. And if they can create these robots to have, thoughts and be able to move and actually seem like a natural being, that would be like the height of their existence. Because now they're attempting to completely reform the earth, replacing every natural being with their synthetic life forms. Okay, this is their diabolical scheme to do. This is them being God to their own life forms. They're attempting to reserve their life forms. That's why, when they used to talk about this KKK and all of this shit, even with the this movement with the Hitler movement that happened, with extensive studies on their own beings over in one land or whatever, like they'll go do whatever in every area just to test some shit out in these other countries that's not within America. Like, that's their testing grounds, big time. That's why they keep them in the third world state. Okay, and a lot of the elite factions are actually centrally localized in some of these different lands or whatever, like London, the United Kingdom, and shit like that, where most of their extended family members over here, they don't really give a shit about, because they look at them as an experiment in itself. Like, everybody over here in the United States is a major experiment going on. Each different zip code is a new project that you are a part of. So, going back to their diabolical plan to create, once they feel like they've created a synthetic life form that resembles the natural being, their next step of evolution would be to completely remove, first of all, to stop the life cycles. And so themselves will be the God that produced their own synthetic existence that could live for however long they see themselves living. Because I'm sure that they'll be creating their predecessors by passing down information to specific ones and letting them know that this is how you extend our life. It's like them acting as us, acting as their creator who created them. And now they can live up to some type of godly form on this realm by producing themselves in a synthetic form that resembles the natural being, and have a whole synthetic society. This is their main thing, is to create a synthetic society. And of course, this is just the limited intellect of a deformed, inadequate being. This is the extent of what they would consider to be intellectual, smart. This is the height. This is what we're experiencing right now. It's the height of all there is of them and their being and who they are and what they can create, which in itself is so fucking limited. You understand what I'm saying? It doesn't even compare to anything that we are capable of, being the original true creators. So, we are activating, waking up, and they're in a state of panic at this moment. Through their falsehoods of their stories that they've been releasing into the public, they are attempting to convince our other dormant, oh my God, like the other beings that are literally the original life form beings, okay, the ones that's dormant right now. Oh shit, what the fuck is this? Yeah, so anyways, they're attempting to keep them in this delusion, you know, because their minds can't even fucking, they have so many viruses. They have atomic level viruses running in their systems on such a high scale that they're unable to use their bodies to process their environments whatsoever. And then on top of that, they've created this delusionary holographic projection to reinforce the atomic virus. When I say atomic virus, a virus is nothing more than a software that is running in our physical bodies at an atomic level. So through vaccinations, they are able to deliver software into our bodies that are literally like viruses running at an atomic cellular level, and that has to be reinforced because we have the ability to self-heal, and we have the ability to our DNA has the ability to mutate at extreme levels. Now that the earth vibration, which they cannot hinder, they've hindered long enough, they've suppressed it long enough that now it's like busting through. It's like a fucking force that's coming bursting through, because they have been trying to suppress and keep it in a low vibratory state. But it's like it's like trying to control a supernatural being that you don't even fucking truly understand what it is. So at some point, whatever you've been doing, it will adapt to, and it will fucking break through that force. The reaction will seem as if it just completely sped up in vibratory frequency, like in a blink of an eye, out of nowhere. And we're having short bursts of that right now with the earth. And so it is some of us are being activated at extreme rates. We're being activated and breaking out of those dormant stasis that we were in, and while we're able to now view others in their dormant stasis. So this is what they had to do. They had to administer these viruses in our systems, because every cell is literally like a fucking processor, I would say like a processor. Computers were built to resemble our cells. Let's just say that. So every cell in itself is its own structure that can perform a specific result on its own. It can process certain shit on its own. It has its own function. Each cell has its own function. So each cell can be programmed. So they have to administer these viruses to break the normal function of the cell, to alter it in some sort of way. And then on top of that, they need an external projection to reinforce whatever made up illusion that they presented to us, to convince us on a cellular level, mentally, physically, of our environment, of what it is. They have to, that's why we have schools everywhere. We have all this unnecessary shit going on, and we brought into a society where it is a normal event for us to have these experiences, where like school, for instance, it's a normal thing to send your child to school because this is what the society is based off of. That means you have become compliant and even supportive of sending your child into a facility for them to sit down and go through a level of programmed, chaotic lies and all sorts of irrelevant information for the first 20, what we would call years, eons of their life on this earth, which will, while they are being administered software on a continuous basis to jam their frequencies, from being able to process their environment off of what they see, touch, feel, all of their senses thrown off, deactivated, a lot of the different cellular structures within our bodies deactivated, and even in some instances have been distorted. where it now the normal function of the cell is doing something completely opposite than what it would normally do. They've been keeping us in a very limited function, as limited as need be to be able to be here. Because now, mind you, the moment that our physical form cease to exist before they're able to, in their mind, create this synthetic life form that can, survive on its own, null and void from us, and they can find another source of energy that sustains this synthetic life form for them. They're now able to, in their minds, they're like, okay, we don't need them anymore. We have ourselves become gods, and we have become singular life forms, where our existence now is undetermined by, our dependent creator that we once had. So it's just basically to overturn the creator. I mean, this is seen on all levels of society. You can see how children are influenced and even supported in overthrowing the parent in the home, being better than being disrespectful. There's no respect for order. Basically saying, like, the structure of, like, you came before me, that person came before me, like, you having respect for everything that came before you. So because they don't even respect their creator, that's why mothers in society are, like, literally the most hindered and depleted life form. Because when we get down to it, when we go all the way back to the 0 point is the female. That's why even in society, it is a societal culture that exists to suppress the woman in all forms of all of its potential, to suppress the woman in all of her potential, where literally the woman, you can't even have a real natural physical life form on this earth unless you come through the gates, the portal of a woman, unless a woman uses her powerful abilities to meld the spirit to the body and bring you through a canal, a gate into this physical realm. Unless she does that, you can't even come into existence. You understand what I'm saying? So even their synthetic form cannot be produced. However, that's why, like, they want to create, their goal is to create an external synthetic life form. Well, it's not really a life form, but they will call it a life form because it can act very, very closely to an original natural being. This is why we're studied on so many levels. Like I said before, I was attempting to describe how they dig up all of our ancestors and stuff out of the ground, and they've been studying them for years, and they study us on a daily basis through their facilities and things like that, hindering and suppressing our evolutionary processes, our mutations, until they feel like they've reached their goal and they no longer need us, where they will now attempt to suppress physical birth altogether within the woman, as if they can. I'm just telling you what their goal is. I'm just telling you what their goal is. So the moment that we realize who we are, and which surpasses any form of thought that they could ever form. So that means that the next level of existence is something that can't even be imagined by any being at this level of operation. And some of the things that have come into knowing is even being suppressed within us. High priestess is being suppressed within us, our inner chamber of darkness, not coming into the physical conscious form until it absolutely needs to. but there's an inner knowing of you already knowing what is. You know what I'm saying? Because you are everything. We are everything. Okay? I am all there is. I am everything, all there is inside of me. I know all. There's nothing I don't fucking know. There's nothing I don't have fucking access to. That's the level that we operate from. That's who we are. And we don't need to speak it. We don't need to act it. We are. And if your mind can absorb the concept of that, it's literally like a being. That's why we consider beings, okay? So anyways, it's so deep, but now my mind is attempting to reveal the very basis of our actions that is creating this synthetic byproduct. Once I identify that, they literally, their end is here. Their end is this is the beginning of their end, and they know it. It's been prophesied to them. We already told them what was to come. They have it in the information. They just didn't know when it would happen, how it would happen, who would it be, the first person, this the person, or how many. They had no specific details, but they had the prophesized events that would happen. They just knew what was to come. And they've been working tirelessly trying to escape. And they fear redemption. They fear, because, you've been a very naughty guardian, that we gave specific guidelines to what you were supposed to do. And somehow you geared from those guidelines. So what will your creator do to you once that your creator comes back into full restoration of itself? And now even into an even more evolved state than I've ever fucking been. You understand what I'm saying? This